The Trump administration on deadline to send a report now to House Speaker Johnson detailing the reasons for a strike that killed 11 suspected members of that Venezuelan Tren de Aragua gang in international waters. Senior officials from the White House have signaled that more military operations against cartels are likely as the Trump administration justifies that strike, saying it falls under the president's authority to defend the United States. Let's bring in our senior national policy correspondent Ann Flaherty, also national security analyst Mick Mulroy. So, Ann, the White House facing this deadline today to justify why this strike happened. So what do we know?
Yeah, that's right. So under the War Powers Act, the president is supposed to tell Congress if it's sent U.S. troops into any kind of hostilities. This is intended to bring Congress into the fold anytime that a president makes a decision that would put troops in harm's way. But something like this, we know that President Trump is likely going to argue, look, the U.S. National security is at risk. I have the power to do this. The war powers debate has been raging for more than 100 years. Whether or not a president should give Congress some sort of control in deciding matters of war and peace. I don't see a lot of lawmakers pushing back on this. Certainly not the Republican-led Senate or House on this. They are going to say that the president needs to do what he needs to do.
Mick, are we officially seeing a new war on drugs here?
Kara, it does look that way, and it's important to point out that the U.S. has been preparing for this since they've essentially announced several of these drug cartels, mostly linked to the Maduro government in Venezuela, as foreign terrorist organization. Once that happened, it's likely that the intelligence community started focusing on these organizations, both for collecting information on what they're doing, but also as a potential target. And we can see, as it happened on September 2nd, they became the target. And so this is probably something that is just at the beginning of an overall campaign. Certainly resurged a lot of military assets to the region. And if they continue to do this under similar circumstances, it's likely that they will continue to take strikes. And of course, if they take direct action against U.S. military, that could escalate this substantially. But that's why I believe we surged so many assets to the region.
Well, and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has already expressed that he's got issues with the Pentagon's legal limits on the use of force. Do we know if he's going to push those limits?
Well, we do know that he says this repeatedly. Every time he talks to the troops, he always says, listen, we've got your back. And there are a lot of questions about what exactly does that mean? Because as you mentioned, there are laws that govern armed conflict, international laws and U.S. laws. But of course, the president and Pete Hegseth have said, we want to loosen those rules. And we know that, essentially every administration makes these decisions, these game time decisions about whether or not to strike a boat, for example, in the South Caribbean. Whether or not they have legal justification for that, I think in somebody like Pete Hegseth's mind, that sort of bureaucratic detail, he's not terribly interested. He says that they are there to win wars. And every time he says this, Kira, he gets cheers from a lot of his audiences who are troops.
And Flaherty, Mick Mulroy, thanks, guys.